FITA chairperson Snenhlanhla responding to, of course, allegations made by Tax Justice South Africa. Before we were cut off there, you were explaining how you view Tax Justice South Africa as an organization.
Yes, of course, as I had stated earlier on, that, you know, the organization and its independence in particular has been called into question. So it's very difficult to attach any credibility to the findings of this report, particularly when you look at the fact that the UCT Institute, which does research into exercisable products, released a report in December, which contradicts quite substantially the findings of the investigation by Tax Justice South Africa. And of course, we know that the University of Cape Town is a much more credible institution. So from our point of view, we will not attach any credibility to a report which was commissioned by a body which has for a long time had links to big tobacco, which of course has an interest in commissioning a report of this nature.
Now, the distancing yourself from the report and, of course, slamming this particular investigation does not address, I suppose, the big issue of illicit tobacco trade in South Africa, which I'm sure you don't deny that it exists. Have you conducted your own investigations around the claims of illicit tobacco trade in the country and which brands are involved?
Look, from our point of view, we haven't commissioned a study. And again, it goes back to the fact that if we do commission a study, the independence thereof and the objectivity thereof would be called into question because, of course, we're an industry body. And we have always said that the country does have a illicit cigarette problem. It's been clear during the lockdown when there was a substantial availability of cigarettes that the country is faced with a serious challenge in as far as the amount of cigarettes that are coming through the borders from our neighboring countries. We have, of course, always aligned ourselves to the view of cigarette industry experts who have stated that reports from industry should not have too much weight attached to them. And we have always called upon independent bodies and government itself to commission such studies.
Now, you're quoted here in a statement as saying that the cigarette brands mentioned by Tax Justice South Africa were not current members of FITA. Were they ever members?
Yes, at some point, yes. I mean, you would appreciate that FITA represented the bulk majority of cigarette manufacturers in the country. In fact, I think there was only one factory in the country which wasn't a member of FITA. So at some point, those members would have been. But as things currently stand, the majority of them are not members of FITA. And we, of course, do not wish to deal with the affairs of other cigarette manufacturers and organizations. And I think those organizations have been approached for comment. So I think they can fight their own wars.
Yeah. From a FITA point of view, why did they cease to be members?
Look, I mean, there have been people coming and going from our organization for years. So as dynamics change in the tobacco industry, certain members or manufacturers feel that their interests are not aligned to those of the organization, and people leave. And some of these manufacturers have come back. So, you know, it's not something that we wish to discuss, but it's not anything that is different to any other organizations which have members coming and going.
Yeah. I mean, for somebody who's not in the space of cigarettes and who's not familiar with the pricing and the purchasing thereof, and listening to us today, if a pack of red and black, I don't even know what that is, costs R7.20, and the producer saying is Afroberg, a member of FITA, should be paying R17.40 excise to government on every pack. Now, if that pack is R7.20, do you agree that it would not really make sense?
Of course, and as we have said, where evidence is brought forward to our organization, we are prepared to investigate. However, we're not prepared to entertain investigations commissioned by bodies which are not independent and only seem to attack members of certain organizations. We also have evidence of other manufacturers being multinationals who are selling cigarettes for below the minimum collectible tax. Of course, there may be explanations for for the price being below the minimum collectible tax. And again, that's why an investigation has to be launched to establish why those particular cigarettes are at that are being sold at that price. But it is difficult to on the surface just state that that cigarette is illegal, as Mr. Abramji has been going around stating, and that is not correct. There is no such law which states that because a cigarette is selling below a certain price, it is illegal. The laws of this country state that one cannot dictate to retailers how much they sell their cigarettes for. So the answer to your question is that on the face of it, it does seem that something is wrong. But of course, with situations like this, it's not that simple, and an investigation would have to be conducted to establish whether the taxes on that cigarette have been paid or not.
Yeah, and there are two things that you mentioned there, Snare. You're saying you've got your evidence of multinationals who are involved in such practices, who are selling at below the collectible excise duty mark. Why are you not presenting this information to SARS?
We have continuously done so. We've released that in press releases. We've laid criminal cases, not only in relation to cigarettes being sold below minimum collectible tax, but also in relation to allegations against the multinationals of money laundering, corruption, surveillance of FITA members and their factories, and things of that nature. But to date, there seems to have been no desire by the state and its law enforcement agencies to investigate these allegations. And we know, of course, that there have been affidavits deposed to by former employees of these multinationals and commissions of inquiry which have touched on these particular allegations. British American Tobacco, the multinational in concern, even launched a worldwide investigation into these allegations, the findings of which have not been released. So again, we call on them to also come forward and release the findings of that particular report.
All right, FITA Chairperson Snenhlanhla Mnguni, I appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us tonight on the Newsfeed Late Night.